I'm a big fan of Picture House Cinemas, so thank you for wanting to speak to me.
When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown.
So my name's Krysty Wilson-Cairnes. I'm a screenwriter. My first produced credit was a couple of episodes on season 3 of Penny Dreadful. And then I worked with Sam Mendes on 1917. And I was very lucky to be nominated for an Oscar for that. And valiantly lost to Parasite, which was a much better script. And then I worked with Edgar Wright on Last Night in Soho.
When you've got troubles, all the noise and the hurry seems to help. I know. Downtown.
Well, going way back, I was a little like weirdo 14, 15-year-old that turned up on the set of Taggart in Glasgow and started asking questions and then never quite left. And so they kept me around and then eventually had to pay me because I think I was probably an insurance risk if they didn't pay me. I wasn't legally an employee. I might have been like an indentured child slave. So I did all that and then really loved filmmaking, had no idea what scripts were because they just used to appear on the Taggart set. We didn't see a lot of writers. And then went to the Royal Scottish Academy, had a really, really good screenwriting tutor. And I thought, God, wait, hang on, I can do this. I don't have to carry any heavy kit around and I never have to be up before 10. Sign me up.
Listen to the music of the traffic in the city.
Sam had very kindly mentioned to Edgar, hey, have you ever met Krysty? You guys would get on like a house on fire. And he was very right. But the first night I met Edgar was the night the Brexit vote had passed through. And so we met in Soho and we basically were just drowning our sorrows as we were both quite ardent Remainers. Love a bit of Europe, me. But yes, so that was the first time I met Edgar. And I think that night I told him, just because we were drinking opposite it, that I used to live above the strip club, Sunset Strip on Dean Street in Soho. And I worked around the corner at a bar called Toucan in Soho. And so I was a creature of Soho, especially at that time in my 20s. And Edgar was like, well, hang on, I have an idea that's all set in Soho. Could you show me some of the seedier parts and some of the kind of dingy, basement bars? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I took him on a tour of, like dirty Soho, like not Soho House, the places where everything's quite sticky when you walk over it. And we ended up in Trish's in the basement bar there. And he told me the story of Last Night in Soho, which I was fully obsessed with when hearing it. And then about 9 months later, right before Christmas, he phoned me and was like, do you remember that story? I was like, yeah, obviously. I think about it literally every time I walk around Soho. And he's like, all right, do you want to write it with me? And yeah, that was a very easy yes, because I'm a big fan of Edgar's work and I liked him as a human.
How can you lose?
Soho's one of those places that gets under your skin. It's like, it's got so much character and so much history and the people on the streets. And there's such a, it's the center of the showbiz industry, and all the editing houses are there and a lot of the casting, a lot of the agencies. So it's very glamorous in that sense. Like quite often you're walking around and you see a celebrity, but it's also, the centre of the red light district and the centre of very illicit kind of activities. And so I think that mixture of the place makes it the perfect home for a story. And Edgar came up with an exceptional one. And I was very happy to jump on board it. I like ambition and a slight amount of insanity in my director friends. And Edgar definitely has that in spades. The ambition, some insanity. And I think, a lot of the stuff, the technical aspects of it, like the mirror stuff, that was often lost on me. He would explain that in the writer's room. He's like, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And I was like, I'm proud of you, and I believe in you. But the actual, like the nitty gritty of telling the story of how much you go back and forth between the 60s of like how much you give of the characters, of how much you kind of push the kind of like frightening aspects of the film and like just this idea of like harassment of women. That was all you just sit down and you start writing and you get a feel for it. And it's like a tightrope act. You just got to get there in balance,
Everyone's waiting for you.
I mean, I think whenever you're writing a horror or a thriller. I mean, anything where you want to scare people or put them at ill ease. You should draw on the stuff in real life that scares you, or that puts you very not at ease. And for me, you know, I've lived in Soho, I've lived in London. I've also been like, you know, a fairly small, youngish woman on my own at night places. And it's probably the most kind of persistent and constant threat is like what might happen to you. And you know, as you see from recent events in the news, like it's very real that women are preyed upon at night. And that has been the case, you know, since long before the 60s. I mean, go all the way back. It's still been the case. And I think, I mean, using that as a really true fear of mine, I think there's an honesty to that when you bring it into a script. There's also very sadly a reality of it. And, you know, I say to people, sort of laughing, but it's not funny at all. Like, you know, all the lines that were said to me in that all the lines said in the taxi in the film have been said to me in taxis, and the, you know, the crude pickup lines from the bar have been said to me. Edgar even went to me, "What's the worst pickup line you've ever heard?" And I was like, "Oh, it's this one." And he's like, "Put it in the film." So I think drawing on that real life aspect brings a sense of honesty and reality, and I think makes scary things scarier. I mean, I think there was always a lot of mirroring in our protagonist, you know, like literally, metaphorically, figuratively, all the ways there was mirroring. And I think I just wanted to tell the story of two strong women that weren't strong in a sort of like masculine sense, not in the sense that they could kick ass or like were great at firing a gun, but two strong women who felt real, who felt like women I know and people I'm friends with, and to tell their stories in a way that felt honest and true. And I think we're exceptionally lucky then, you know, obviously with Edgar, the director, being able to have the empathy and the ability to see outside what he is and himself and understand those experiences, I think is really extraordinary. And then, of course, having Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomasin McKenzie really doesn't hurt, because when you've got two absolutely amazing actresses, you can just trust them to imbue those qualities, and you don't have to make, you know, like really on the nose dialogue or anything like that. You can just let them act. And that's a very satisfying place to be as a writer. And also, I must say, you know, and both the famous British directors that I've worked with are surrounded by female producers. You know, a lot of their teams are females and they're very balanced. There's a real sense of equality in Complete Fiction and in Neil Street. And I think that shows through all their work. It's a recognition of what women can bring. Dianna Rigg, when I was very young, like really little, they used to play reruns of the Avengers, the real Avengers. And I was totally obsessed. My mum and I used to sit and watch them. And then, like, you know, I used to dress up as her, as Emma Peel for Halloween when I was like such a weird kid at school, because everyone was like, who is this? And I'm like, I don't want to be a princess. I want to be Emma Peel. And for me, she was like the first female superhero I had ever seen. And she looks a bit like my mum. And so it was like a really quite extraordinary, like, I suppose, you know, character that had played a huge part in my life in my kind of formative years. And when Edgar mentioned that she was going to read for the script for this, I like lost my shit. I was like, oh my God, I might get to meet Dianna Rigg. I was so excited. And then when she took the part, you know, I remember phoning my mum and being like, Dianna Rigg's going to do it. And my mum was like giggling like a schoolgirl. And my mum doesn't get starstruck. I took her to the Oscars. She doesn't care, but she really cared about Dianna Rigg. And then actually getting to meet Dianna and seeing her act, I mean, she knew what she was doing. Like, she's really incredible at it. And, you know, you write dialogue and you hope the best case scenarios you'll get someone who's incredible, some incredible actor. And, you know, she just blew my socks off every turn. She also drank me under the table once when we had a script meeting. So, like, I have nothing but a huge amount of respect for her. She was so fun and so full of life. And, yeah, the world's much poorer for her having gone.
Thank you for watching Picture House Cinema's unique video content. Hit the subscribe button to be kept up to date with our movie news, cast and crew interviews, highlights, trailers, and lots more.